My dad gave the family business. I spent 10 years building to my golden boy brother because he has a wife and kids. So I resigned quietly, took the clients who trusted me, started my own company, and watched their business sink while mine took off. Hey, Reddit! My dad always favored my brother, no matter what I did. I helped build his whole business, and he still pushed me aside. So I walked away and started fresh. But of course, they weren't done with me yet. Let me start from the beginning. My name's Zeke. I'm 33, and I've been a heavy diesel mechanic for most of my life. I grew up in a pretty normal house. My dad, Wayne, my mom, Mallory, and my older brother, Dustin. From the outside, we probably looked like any other family. Inside, it was pretty clear early on that Dustin and I lived in two different lanes. He was the school kid, the one who liked neat clothes and good grades. I was the kid who preferred taking apart old hydraulic pumps and busted tool parts in the shed. None of that was a problem by itself. The real issue was how our dad reacted to those differences. When Dustin got pneumonia in high school, everything changed. It was bad enough that everyone was scared for a while, and Wayne basically lived at the hospital with him. When Dustin got better, Wayne never really stopped treating him like he needed extra attention. It didn't matter that Dustin bounced right back to normal. Wayne acted like he was fragile in some permanent way, and everyone else just sort of had to adjust around it. After that, the favoritism came in small things. If Dustin and I argued, Wayne took his side before even listening. If Dustin brought home a decent test score, Wayne would brag about it for days. If I said, "Hey, I got an A2, Wayne would nod and go, "Good job, buddy," and move on. None of it felt cruel, just obvious. When there was attention to give, Dustin got the bigger share. Then came the award ceremony. That one stuck. I was in 5th grade and had won a school award. I remember telling Wayne in the kitchen, and he smiled and said, "Of course I'll be there, champ." Mallory reminded him the night before. Everything seemed fine until Dustin heard us talking. "You're skipping basketball for that?" he complained. "Dad, we were going to practice free throws." Wayne hesitated, like he was choosing between breathing and not breathing. Mallory stepped in with, "Wayne, he needs you there. Basketball can wait." Dustin rolled his eyes and muttered, "It's not even a big award." The next morning, I reminded Wayne again before leaving. He ruffled my hair and said, "Relax, I'll be there." He wasn't. During the ceremony, I kept scanning the door. Parents were walking in with big smiles, taking photos. Every time someone arrived late, I thought maybe it was Wayne. When they called my name and I went up on stage, the first thing I did was look for him. Nothing. Mallory actually wanted to attend herself, but she worked night shifts at the hospital. On the day of the ceremony, she'd been up for 12 hours straight and was barely standing by morning. She told me, "I wish I could come, sweetheart, but I wouldn't get there safely. Your dad will be there for you." She meant it. She trusted Wayne to show up because she physically couldn't. After school, I texted Mallory that Wayne never showed. She didn't answer at first. She'd finally crashed after her shift. But when she woke up and saw my message, she called immediately. "Honey, are you sure? His car's not here? He definitely left the house this morning." When I got home, Wayne and Mallory were already arguing. She was furious. "Why didn't you go?" she demanded. Wayne looked uncomfortable. We got delayed." Dustin walked in holding an ice cream cone like it was no big deal. Mallory turned on him. "You skipped the ceremony for ice cream?" Dustin shrugged. "I just wanted one, okay?" We went after, but the front office said the ceremony had already ended. Mallory stared at Wayne like she couldn't believe him. "You promised him. He worked hard for that moment." Wayne sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "It's one ceremony. There'll be others. I didn't think it mattered that much." That sentence dug in deeper than anything. Mallory wasn't having it. "It mattered to him," she said. "You can't keep doing this, Wayne." He just repeated, "I didn't think it was a big deal." And the conversation went nowhere after that. Later, he came into my room and said quietly, "Sorry, champ, we just lost track of time." He didn't sound mean, just casual. Too casual for something that mattered a lot to me. I told him, "It's okay," because at that age, I didn't know what else to say. But even then, some part of me knew it wasn't okay. Mallory tried to fix the pattern, but nothing ever stuck. Wayne always drifted back into the same habits, leaning toward Dustin, giving him more patience, more attention, more excuses. And the quiet truth I learned from all that was simple. Wayne noticed me most when I was helping him, not when I needed him. If I was useful, sweeping the shop, fetching tools, tagging along on equipment service calls, he'd talk to me. If I needed support, he'd brush past it. I didn't break down or make a scene. I just tucked that moment away with all the others. I tried to shrug it off the way kids do, but the disappointment settled deeper than I realized. And without knowing it at the time, that pattern became the foundation for almost everything that happened later. Even with everything that happened when I was younger, I never lost interest in mechanical work. Engines made sense to me, even when people didn't. When I was a kid, Wayne would take me along to the job sites or the workshop on weekends. He didn't call it bonding or anything like that. He'd just say, "If you're coming, grab the broom," and I'd tag along. I liked sorting bolts, handing him tools, and watching how the guts of equipment fit together. Excavator pumps, skid steer engines, hydraulic lines, it all felt natural, like something I didn't have to force. By the time I finished high school, I already knew I wanted to stick with this kind of work. Not just being the extra pair of hands, but someone who actually knew what he was doing. So I told Wayne, "I'm thinking about studying automotive engineering." He shrugged and said, "If that's what you want, go for it." It wasn't enthusiastic, but it was enough. I didn't need applause. I just wanted the knowledge to actually improve what we did. Mobile repairs, heavy equipment breakdowns, fleet service calls. When I came back after finishing my degree, the reality of the business hit me immediately. The operation was still stuck in an older version of itself. There were only 2 part-time techs who mostly handled emergency breakdowns. The scheduling system was basically Wayne saying, "Drop it at the yard Tuesday, I'll get to it when I can," or driving out to a site without writing anything down. Papers were shoved into drawers, parts orders were forgotten, and half-disassembled machines sat around waiting for someone to remember them. It wasn't laziness, it was disorganization built over years. I saw what needed doing and did it. I made proper schedules. I returned client calls instead of letting them wait 2 days. I started tracking parts orders, writing clear timelines on job cards, and organizing workflow so nothing got stuck in the middle of a job. When we needed more help, I said, "We should hire another tech." And Wayne gave a half nod and said, "If you think it's needed," like he didn't realize we were drowning. Sometimes he'd say, "Good call," or "That helped," but he never looked at the whole picture. Office work wasn't his thing. If he wasn't under a dozer or rewiring a loader, he didn't consider it real work. Every now and then, Dustin would pop in unannounced. He'd walk around with his hands in his pockets, looking at the machines like they were wild animals at a zoo. "Could never do this," he'd laugh. "I'd ruin all my shirts." Another time he said, "Man, how do you even remember what part goes where?" Always that outsider tone. Not insulting, just disconnected. He'd leave after 10 minutes and say, "Good seeing you guys," like he had visited an exhibit. I didn't let it bother me. I liked what I did. There were nights I stayed late because a construction company had a machine down and needed it ready for the morning shift. I never did it for praise. I just wanted the operation to run smoothly. And it did. Slowly at first, then all at once. Word got out that we stuck to deadlines now. One rental equipment company in particular became the anchor. They weren't just a client. They were a steady stream of work that kept the trucks moving and the payroll easy. When you have something like that, you don't notice how much it's holding the whole place up. Clients liked that when they called, someone actually answered. They appreciated that I remembered their equipment and could tell them exactly what stage a repair was at. Techs liked having clear instructions instead of guessing what Wayne wanted. We grew from 2 part-time techs to 5, then 7. On paper, it looked like we'd expanded, but we were still lean. No real dispatcher, no office manager, no one dedicated to keeping the workflow tight. The old yard office wasn't enough anymore, so we added another workspace. We bought more service trucks, upgraded tools, and built systems that made everything faster. Wayne stayed mostly in the field or the workshop. If a client complimented the company, he'd smile and say, "Yeah, we've been working hard," without really thinking about why things were suddenly smoother. Dustin came by less often as we got busier. When he did show up, he'd walk through and say things like, "Wow, looks like you guys expanded," or "Business must be good." He said it the same way someone talks about the weather. No curiosity, no connection. Meanwhile, I was putting in hours I didn't even track. Some days I went home exhausted, but still felt like I'd done something worth doing. There were moments where I'd look around the busy yard or the full service trucks and think, this is actually turning into something. The growth didn't feel accidental. It felt earned, client by client, system by system. And even though nobody sat me down and said, "This will be yours one day," I still believed it, because the business already treated me like it was. Wayne introduced me to clients as the one who ran the place. My name was on vendor accounts. I was the one signing off on parts orders, dispatching trucks, and fixing the mess when something went sideways. We never did paperwork around it, no titles, no clean succession plan. But functionally, I was already carrying the weight of an owner. So I assumed eventually the label would match the reality. The divorce between Wayne and Mallory didn't crash in suddenly. It wore them down gradually, the kind of slow grind that eats at a household until nobody has the energy to pretend things are fine. They argued about money, about Wayne working too much, about him working too little, about how he talked to Dustin, about how he talked to me. After a while, the arguments became so normal that the silence felt stranger than the noise. When they finally told us they were splitting, Dustin and I weren't shocked. We'd been waiting for it without admitting it. Once Wayne moved out, he tried to reinvent himself. He started dressing younger. Tight shirts, shiny shoes, cologne that didn't match a guy who spent decades climbing in and out of service trucks. He'd show up to the yard in outfits that looked like he was heading somewhere expensive afterward. Half the time he was. He'd say things like, "I'm going out tonight," even before finishing whatever equipment job he was working on. It was clear he wasn't just living alone. He was living like a bachelor who thought he was 20 again. Around that time, Dustin's life took a different turn. He'd leaned hard into the office world. Accounting, budgeting, talking about long-term planning the way people do when they've never had to keep a dead machine running before sunrise. On paper, he looked like the responsible one. In the yard, he didn't even know where we kept fittings. He got married to a woman named Renee. They had a small apartment in the city and talked about future plans. Kids, a house, all the things he considered part of the normal adult path. A few months after the divorce, Wayne introduced us to someone new. Her name was Adeline, and she was noticeably younger. She smiled politely and barely asked anything about the business or about us. Wayne, on the other hand, couldn't stop talking. Where they went out, what she liked, what he'd bought recently. It felt like watching someone who was determined to prove something. Wayne shifted quickly after meeting her. He cared more about appearances, about being seen, about doing things that looked impressive rather than things that mattered. He stopped showing up early for service calls, left the yard earlier than before, and spent money like he was trying to build a new identity. I noticed he talked less about hard work and more about enjoying life. Whenever one of the mechanics needed him for something, questions about a hydraulic pump, a mobile call-out, anything, he'd say, "Ask Zeke," and disappear. Then one afternoon, Wayne called both Dustin and me. "I want you boys to come to dinner," he said. A proper dinner, important stuff to talk about. Wayne didn't do proper dinners. He barely planned anything. Hearing him talk that way made my stomach tighten a little. Dustin felt it too. He asked, "Is everything all right?" And Wayne just said, "Yeah, just come." The restaurant he picked wasn't his usual type. It was one of those places where they fold the napkins in complicated shapes. When Dustin and I walked in, Wayne was already seated, dressed like someone trying to knock 10 years off his age. Adeline sat beside him, scrolling through her phone. As soon as we sat down, Wayne leaned forward like he'd been waiting to make an announcement. "I wanted you both here because, well, Adeline and I got married. Just like that. No heads up, no involving his sons." Dustin blinked a few times and said, "When did that happen?" "Last month," Wayne replied. "We kept it small." He didn't say we weren't invited, but it didn't need to be said. Before we could fully process that, Wayne cleared his throat and switched topics. "Anyway, I've also been thinking a lot about the future of the shop, planning ahead." Dustin leaned back, trying to look relaxed. I stayed quiet. Wayne continued, "I've watched both of you build your lives. Dustin, you've got a wife now, responsibilities, things you need long-term stability for." Dustin didn't correct him. He just nodded slightly. Wayne then looked at me. "And you're not married, no kids, no big commitments. So it makes sense for you to stay in your role while Dustin takes on the leadership side." I asked, "Leadership side?" "Yeah," Wayne said like it was obvious. "He'll take over the business one day. You'll work under him. You've always been good with the hands-on stuff. Dustin can handle the business end." Dustin didn't say a word at first. He didn't defend me, didn't question the decision, just avoided looking at me, poking at his plate with his fork. It wasn't surprise on his face. It was discomfort, like he knew enough beforehand to stay quiet. I tried to stay level. "So I'm not inheriting anything?" Wayne waved his hand like I was being dramatic. "Don't look at it that way. You'll still have a secure place. It's just about what makes sense. Dustin has a future to support. You're more flexible." Flexible. That word hit harder than I expected. The rest of dinner blurred into small talk that didn't land. When Wayne said, "Glad we're on the same page," neither Dustin nor I responded. When I walked out into the parking lot, the air felt heavier than anything said at the table. For years, I'd treated the business like my future, but it turned out Wayne had decided mine for me. Driving home after that dinner, everything felt muted. The road, the streetlights, the engine. None of it registered the way it normally did. Wayne's words played in my head like someone repeating a fact instead of an argument. It didn't feel sudden. It felt like something he'd been building toward for years, and I had finally been slow enough to catch it. When I walked into Mallory's house, she took one look at me and said, "What happened?" I told her everything. Not dramatically, just the facts. She listened the way she always did, without jumping in or trying to frame it differently. When I finished, she let out a slow breath and said, "Zeke, you don't have to stay in a place that only sees what you can do, not who you are." It wasn't advice. It was truth she'd watched unfold for a long time. I stayed there that night. We sat at her small kitchen table for a while, not talking much. She made tea and pushed a plate of leftovers toward me, the way moms do when they don't know how else to help. Being there made everything clear. I'd spent 10 years building something with Wayne. He'd chosen Dustin long before that dinner. The only difference now was that he said it out loud. The next morning, I went to the yard early. Mallory made me a quick breakfast and handed it to me before I left. "Do what's right for you," she said. No pressure, no guilt, just support. When I got to the yard, I opened the office and started working through the week's assignments. A logging company had a loader down at one of their sites. I drove out and replaced the hydraulic lines myself. Another contractor needed electrical diagnostics on a stubborn excavator. So I ran the tests, wrote clear notes, and updated the job sheet. Back at the yard, I organized the cluttered paperwork, labeled incoming parts, and made sure every active ticket had instructions. I wasn't walking away leaving a mess behind. Whatever happened next, I wanted the crew to have a fighting chance. When Wayne arrived, I told him directly, "I'm putting in my notice." He blinked once, then scowled. "You're overthinking this." "No," I said. "I'm leaving." He waved a hand like he was shooing away a fly. "You'll come back once things settle. Don't make this bigger than it is." He didn't ask why. He didn't ask what he'd done. He didn't ask what I was planning. It was exactly what I expected. Annoyance, not concern. "I'll finish out the week," I said. "Everything will be handed off cleanly." "Do what you want," he muttered, grabbing his tools and heading toward the workshop. I kept working. Mallory texted once around lunch. "How are you doing?" I sent her a short reply, "Finishing things up." She wrote back, "I'm proud of you." It steadied me more than anything, Wayne said that day. As the week went on, the cracks showed immediately. Dustin tried stepping into tasks he didn't understand. A fleet manager called about a truck that needed urgent servicing, and Dustin told him, "We'll try to fit you in," without checking which service trucks were already out. A mechanic asked him a simple question about a parts order, and Dustin said, "Just figure it out," because he didn't know how to read the job history. One of the techs pulled me aside. "Who's supposed to dispatch field calls now?" "Ask Wayne or Dustin," I said. He frowned. "Yeah, but who actually is?" Dustin struggled with everything. Reading diagnostic notes, prioritizing jobs, talking to clients, approving repairs. He hesitated on decisions that needed 10 seconds. He rushed decisions that needed 10 minutes. None of it surprised me. He wasn't trained for this work, and he didn't understand how much time and detail went into each repair. By Thursday, I'd finished all my open service calls and organized the yard office so the next tech could follow the workflow. I brought the paperwork home to Mallory's kitchen table that night to double-check it. She helped me sort through the piles, handing me job sheets and reading dates out loud. It wasn't glamorous help, but it meant a lot. "You're doing this the right way," she said. "That matters." On my last day, the mechanics gathered around more than usual. One of them said, "It won't feel right without you." Another asked again, "Sure you don't want to stay?" But my answer didn't change. "I'm done here." Wayne stayed in the workshop pretending to be busy. He didn't come out to talk or even look at me. When I finally walked past him to leave, he said the same line he'd used all week. "You'll be back." I didn't respond. I just walked out. Leaving wasn't about proving anything. It was about finally accepting that the place wasn't built to value me. And thanks to Mallory, I understood that walking away didn't mean failure. It meant choosing myself, for the first time in a long time. I didn't expect anyone to reach out after I left. I figured Wayne would tell clients whatever story he wanted, and that would be that. But only a few days passed before the first call came in. It was a foreman from a site we'd serviced for years. "Hey, we tried calling the shop. You not there anymore?" "No, I left," I said. He paused. "So who's handling our machines now? Dustin?" "I'm not sure. I'm starting my own mobile repair operation." He didn't hesitate. "All right, we'd rather stick with you, Dick. Loader's down. Can you come out this afternoon?" After that, the calls started coming in steady. Different companies, same problem. That morning, Mallory packed me a lunch before I left. "You'll be moving around all day," she said. Small gesture, but steadying. Word spread faster than I expected. 3 fleet managers called that week, each with their own version of the same complaint. We called Wayne and got the runaround. I gave the same simple answer. I'm starting my own mobile repair operation. They didn't care about the company name. They cared about who showed up, who communicated, and who got their machines running again. Downtime hurt them. They valued the person who prevented it. I'd spent years being the one who answered calls before sunrise, the one who remembered which excavator had wiring issues or which dump truck constantly blew hoses. Trust isn't complicated. It's consistency. And I already had that with them. Using my savings, I bought a used service truck. Mallory came with me to pick it up. "Looks right for you," she said, as I loaded tools into the back. She wasn't wrong. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. I stocked it with the essentials: diagnostic tools, a small welder, hydraulic gauges, basic electrical equipment, and a crate of fittings and hoses. Not as equipped as the trucks at Wayne's shop, but enough to get started. At Mallory's kitchen table, I put together a simple booking system, just a spreadsheet with dates, job types, and client names. Then I built a weekly plan, scheduled maintenance on certain days, open slots for emergency calls, and space for unexpected breakdowns. The first week, I handled 4 job sites. By the second week, the calls multiplied. In the trades, word moves fast. A reliable mechanic with his own setup is news that spreads quickly. One of Wayne's old mechanics called one evening. "Heard you started your own thing," he said. "You need help?" "Not yet," I told him. He wasn't disappointed, more like relieved to have another option. "If you grow, let me know," he said. "This place is different now." He didn't need to explain. Another tech approached me later. "If you ever expand, I'd jump over," he said. "Things aren't running smooth there." I didn't comment. I wasn't trying to take anyone from Wayne. People chose their environments on their own. More clients kept calling. One said, "I'd rather use someone who shows up when he says." Another told me, "You saved us days of downtime last year. We trust you." A third didn't bother with small talk. "What's your rate?" There was no drama, just practical decisions. Work built up fast. I realized quickly that consistent maintenance plans could prevent a lot of emergencies. I drafted simple outlines: monthly fluid checks, quarterly hydraulic inspections, seasonal electrical diagnostics, annual full service. A few clients signed on immediately. They liked having someone track what needed attention before it became expensive. By the end of the month, I wasn't trying to find work. I was trying to organize it. Contractors, fleet owners, and rental companies booked jobs steadily. They didn't follow me because they liked me more than Wayne. They followed me because the person who kept their equipment running had left, and they weren't willing to gamble on someone else. One foreman summed it up perfectly. Doesn't matter what the company's called. It matters who shows up. Showing up had always been my thing. I felt steady. The business wasn't big yet, but it was real. Built on work I did myself, not on a family name. Clients weren't choosing sides. They were choosing reliability, and that was enough to keep me moving forward, one repair at a time. It didn't take long for word to get around that things at Wayne's shop weren't running smoothly. I wasn't keeping tabs on them. I was too busy building my own operation. But in this industry, news travels fast. Foremen talk to other foremen. Mechanics talk to other mechanics. Nobody gossips on purpose, but people share what affects their jobs. The first sign came from a client who called me for a repair. While I worked on his machine, he said, "We tried your old place first. They couldn't tell us when someone would come out." I didn't respond. I just kept working. Then more comments came in over the next few weeks. They sent Dustin out to look at a hydraulic leak. He stared at it for 10 minutes and said he needed to check the manual. They missed a deadline and blamed a parts delay, but they ordered the wrong pump entirely. They told us to call back later. We can't do that when an excavator is down. It wasn't surprising. Dustin didn't know this work. He didn't know how to read a hydraulic diagram or diagnose electrical faults. He didn't understand which emergencies had to be handled immediately and which ones could wait. He didn't know the clients, and they didn't trust him. Machines started sitting half-finished at the shop for days. A grader with a bad cylinder, a dozer with a starting issue, a fleet truck waiting on parts Dustin forgot to reorder. Techs would show up in the morning unsure which job to start because nobody had updated the schedule. The most common question I heard from other mechanics was, "Who's running things over there?" I didn't answer. It wasn't my place to explain anything. Construction companies began moving their contracts elsewhere. Not necessarily to me, but anywhere they could rely on. Downtime was costing them too much. Mallory started hearing things too. One evening she called and said, "I ran into someone who said Wayne's having trouble keeping up with work." She didn't sound pleased or smug, just concerned. I know you didn't want this, she added. I didn't, I said. You did everything the right way, she told me. You left cleanly. Whatever happens now, it's not on you. I appreciated hearing it. Even if I knew it logically, having someone say it out loud mattered. Around that time, the messages from Wayne started. At first, they were subtle. Not sure why you left when you did. Things are rough over here. Then they shifted tone. You abandoned us. This is your family's income. Or it was supposed to be. Be a man and fix what you caused. Each message arrived late at night, like he sent them after stewing over things alone. I didn't respond. He blamed the mechanics, the clients, the economy. He did not blame Dustin. According to him, Dustin was doing his best, and everything falling apart was the fault of everyone else. Wayne hadn't taken responsibility in years, so I wasn't shocked. Meanwhile, Adeline's name started coming up in conversations. A tech mentioned to me quietly, "She's barely around anymore. She only shows up when Wayne's handing her cash." Another person said, "She looked annoyed the last time I saw her, like she wants out." Money tightening tends to reveal who's invested and who isn't. Wayne didn't say anything about her directly, but the tone of his messages changed again. "She's upset I can't take her places anymore. She's threatening to leave. You're part of why this is happening." He made it sound like my responsibility, as if I owed him the success he lost. Mallory saw the messages one afternoon when I was at her house. She shook her head. "That's manipulation," she said plainly. "He chose his path long before you left." "I know," I said. "You don't have to rescue him from his own decisions," she told me. "You spent years keeping things afloat." That was enough. Her calmness kept me grounded. She wasn't trying to pull me one direction or the other. She just reminded me of the truth. I still didn't respond to Wayne. By mid-month, the shop had lost several contracts. The rental equipment company pulled their fleet service agreement, the one that had quietly been a huge chunk of the monthly revenue. When that work vanished, it wasn't a slow decline. It was like someone yanked the floor out from under the whole operation. A trucking fleet switched to another mobile repair outfit. 2 construction companies stopped calling altogether. The techs still working there were overwhelmed and frustrated, some openly talking about looking for work elsewhere. It wasn't a dramatic explosion. It was the same slow grind as the divorce, small failures piling up day after day, until the whole thing finally collapsed. And through all of it, he kept pointing the blame everywhere except where it belonged. "You're the reason Dustin is struggling," he wrote one night. "You should step up," he wrote another. "This is still your family," came a third. But it wasn't. Not that version of it. Not the version where I worked unpaid overtime to cover for choices I didn't make. Not the version where Dustin got the title and I got the workload. It had been a few months since I'd left Wayne's business. One afternoon, I was organizing parts in my truck when I heard gravel crunching behind me. I turned and saw Wayne's truck pulling up. Dustin was in the passenger seat. Neither had called. Neither had texted. They just showed up. Wayne got out first. "We need to talk," he said, like it was some urgent business matter. Dustin stood behind him, arms crossed, trying to look confident. I wiped my hands on a rag. "All right, what's going on?" Wayne didn't waste time. "The shop is falling apart," he said. "You walking out created problems we didn't expect. And now jobs are backed up. We're losing contracts. And the techs aren't listening to Dustin." Dustin added, "It's been chaos, man. You know how everything works. You know the clients. You know the equipment. You're the one who can fix this." That last sentence told me everything. Same pattern, same expectation. I solved the problem so they can take the credit. Wayne stepped closer. "Look, if you come back, we can clean the slate. You take over the field work again, handle scheduling, get the guys in order. Dustin will oversee operations like we planned." "Like you planned," I said. Wayne ignored that. "You do the hands-on stuff. Dustin handles the big picture things." That's how it should be. I could see Dustin tense a little, like even he knew how hollow that sounded. But he didn't say anything. "What do you want me to do?" I asked. Not because I was considering it, but because I wanted to hear him say it plainly. "You fix the shop," Wayne said. "Bring clients back. Make things run the way they used to. You're good at that. Always have been." There it was. Confirmation that in Wayne's eyes, my role had never changed. No matter how much the business grew, no matter how much I built, I'd always be the reliable one who kept everything afloat while someone else got the title. "I'm not coming back," I said. Wayne stared at me, stunned. Dustin looked down at his shoes. "Don't be stupid," Wayne said. "Family businesses have rough patches. You step up, things go back to normal." "Normal wasn't fair," I said, "and it wasn't my future." Wayne's voice hardened. You owe this family something. I don't owe you the rest of my life, I replied. Dustin muttered, So that's it? You're just done? I was done the minute you both expected me to work under you like nothing I did mattered. Wayne tried again. We can make this right. Just come back. No, I said, calm and steady. I'm not saving something you broke. For a long moment, none of us spoke. Then Wayne threw up his hands and walked back toward his truck. This is on you, he said. Remember that. Dustin didn't say anything else. They drove off without looking back. That was the last time I saw either of them in person. Over the next few weeks, their messages shifted from pleading to angry to desperate. I blocked both numbers. From that point on, updates came through family friends. The business didn't just decline. It finally gave out. First, Wayne tried to run it himself again, but the workload was too much. Dustin attempted to manage from the office, but clients didn't trust him, and the techs didn't either. Equipment sat untouched for days. Deadlines were missed. Word spread quickly. Eventually, Wayne sold the company. Not for growth or retirement, just to get out from under the debt. The buyer stripped the assets, rebranded the trucks, and let most of the staff go. Around the same time, Adeline left. A friend said she took whatever money Wayne had left. She wanted a lifestyle, they told me. Once the money slowed down, so did her interest. Dustin went back to accounting a few months later. I wasn't surprised. He wasn't built for this line of work, and none of this had ever been his passion. Meanwhile, my business kept growing. Mallory became a regular part of my routine again. Some evenings I'd drop by her place after work, still in my grease-stained clothes, and she'd hand me dinner before I could say no. She'd ask how jobs went, listen without trying to solve anything, and remind me quietly, you earned this. And she was right. I hadn't built my business to prove Wayne wrong. I built it because I finally had the room to do things properly. I built it because I wanted something stable, something real, something that respected the effort I put into it. One night after finishing paperwork, I sat in my truck and looked around the small yard I rented. 2 service trucks. A toolbox that was finally organized the way I liked. Work orders pinned neatly to a board. It wasn't extravagant. It wasn't massive. But it was mine. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel and help us bring you more and better stories. Thanks.